Shoot your arrows! Cooper Kupp plucks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. Robert Woods, touchdown! LA! Dog goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. Picked off. Marcus Peters coming off the edge. Ryan will be wrapped up by Clay Matthews. Everett in stride! Wow!
Franklin Myers gets his hand down there.
Weddle got a hand on it. Did he pick it? He did!
Racing down the sideline is Akeem Talib. Gurley for MVP! Touchdown LA!
Picked off by John Johnson.
Well, Dante Fowler, who is able to get to breathe. Greg Zuerlein sends the Rams to the Super Bowl! LA will play for the Lombardi!
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. This is episode 181. I'm your host, Jake Ellenbogen. Joining me will be Alexis Kraft, and we have our guest from Blitzalytics, Jason Feiner. He's coming on. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy that. And if you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you subscribe, wherever you listen. Be sure to subscribe. That thing will hit your pocket. With all the latest podcasts. So always be sure to subscribe. If you haven't already and you like the show, definitely leave a review. Also, if you have anything that you want to suggest or anything like that, always be sure to send us some questions via our direct messaging on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you can leave it right in a review. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoy. It's Jason Feiner, it's Jake Ellenbogen, which is me, and Alexis Kraft, and we're talking Rams and we're talking draft. So enjoy the podcast. All right, guys, joining the Downtown Rams podcast, we have a friend that I actually was able to meet in Mobile, Jason Feiner. He's from Blitzalytics, and those guys over there are absolutely killing it. So, Jason, I'll let you introduce yourself, and obviously have the necessary plugs, but welcome to the show, and thanks for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. Excited to talk some football, talk some Rams, talk some draft. I'm the scouting director over at blitzalytics.com. Go check it out. It has all your football needs, anywhere from fantasy to the draft guides. And we got more full-style scouting reports coming your way soon.
Hey, I love it, man. You guys have been killing it, doing the AAF, I see, and it's awesome. And I know we talked about it a lot, and you guys. You got a really cool little, business model there. So, I know you were at the combine. So just obviously keep grinding. Love what you're doing, and guys, definitely check it out. But yeah, Jason, let's get it started. Alexis is also here with us. I don't think I did a good job of introducing her, but I think people just assume she's on. So guys, we're gonna talk. We'll just dive into it with the Rams offseason outlook, kind of heading in the NFL draft. So I want to start with you, Jason. What were your thoughts on the Rams? Who they moved on from? Saffold, Joyner, and it looks like Ndamukong Suh.
So there's four guys. You named three of them that I'm looking at kind of hefty losses. One, not so much, but he's going to be bigger than many think. And that's LaMarcus Joyner, like you said, Saffold, Suh, and Mark Barron. So with Joyner, he was a Swiss Army knife for the defense. He's going to be a big miss in Wade Phillips' scheme, which uses him in so many different ways, from high safety to box safety to slot corner. He's a valuable piece in the locker room, a true leader. It's big that they got Eric Weddle to come in, but that age difference is going to be pretty big. And as far as the production replacement, Weddle will be fine for a year or two. I'm not really sure how long they think that he can play for, though, just turning 34. With Saffold, that's probably their biggest blow of the offseason, just because they don't have a surefire starter to place as their left guard. He's been their starter for the 46 of the possible 48 games over the past 3 seasons. He's been that rock on the left side of the line, and unless they're looking at like a mid-round draft pick, there aren't too many guards in the later rounds, they don't have the firepower in the draft to really claim one unless they want to trade down in the first round.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that about Joyner, because I myself kind of felt a little bit of the same way, and Jake can give his thoughts. But I actually was a little bit sad to see Joyner go. And as you mentioned, there is that age difference between Joyner and Weddle. So I am curious, if Weddle is going to fit into that scheme as well as Joyner did.
Yeah. I just look at the Joyner thing, and, he is somebody that really turned it on last year after moving to free safety. Unfortunately, this year, there were a lot of costly plays that, you talk about the Saints game, for the Super Bowl. And, obviously it goes down to that call that everyone talks about, but that call doesn't happen if Joyner doesn't give up kind of like a cue ball shot from, Drew Brees throwing it up there, kind of like a prayer for Ted Ginn. He's got to be able to make that play. And there were a lot of those plays this year. And, I think when you have somebody like John Johnson that was able to step up, I think the Rams kind of felt comfortable with what they had back there, but they also felt comfortable looking at, who was out there. Clearly they got Weddle, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But I do want to, shift gears a little bit and look at who the Rams, brought in, because we talked about Weddle. They do bring in Clay Matthews, which I thought was an interesting move for sure. Seeing the versatility there, played inside backer, can play outside. Very interesting. And then, of course, Blake Bortles. So I just want to get your take on that as well, Jason.
Yeah, I love the Eric Weddle signing. He's one of the best leaders in the league, let alone at safety. But he also just turned 34, like we said before. He's going to be a solid replacement, but just how long can he continue to play at that Pro Bowl, All-Pro type of level? As long as he's on the field, he's going to help the unit out. But I just don't see him continuing that success, especially in a new system and the type that Wade Phillips likes to use the safeties in all parts of the field. It's going to be a little tougher for him to adapt and continue to grow in that system. And then Clay Matthews, you said it. It's no secret that he's aging and he isn't as explosive as he used to be, but he's so versatile. He can bend the edge, get to the quarterback, drop into coverage, play that outside linebacker position, add that leadership mentality to the locker room. It's so interesting how last year they're bringing in all these firecrackers that could go off at any time, and now they're bringing in true leaders to guide that locker room. And that might have actually been what they were missing in the playoffs. Even though Weddle hasn't been to the big stage, Clay Matthews has been there. They've know what's going on. They know how to lead a team and lead a locker room and lead a defense. And although Matthews has had 3 sacks last year, he's also had 3 that were called back for roughing the passer. If he can correct his landing, he's going to have a productive season for a Rams team that still has Wade Phillips calling shots.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we talk about these guys who are, big names that the Rams added in free agency. Is there anyone else that you think that, the Rams should target that's still available in free agency?
There's one player would help shore up a spot that's been a problem for them for the past 2 years, and that's Zach Brown from the Redskins. He was playing at a Pro Bowl level in September and October, but fell out of favor in Washington's due to the coaching staff. If the Rams really want to find a anchor in the middle of the field who can drop into coverage and get almost every every tackle that they need in the second level, a true run-stopping middle linebacker, Zach Brown is the guy, and he would not be extremely expensive. He'd come on a team-friendly deal.
I really like that. He's somebody I think would be really like a nice fit next to Corey Littleton. I don't know your thoughts on Corey Littleton. I know I mentioned him a little bit, but I don't really remember. We were just kind of talking in Mobile. But what are your overall thoughts on Corey Littleton as a player that kind of comes from UDFA background, more of a pass rusher at Washington? I don't think was used properly, and then he kind of carves out a role on special teams, and now he's the starter that kind of forced Alec Ogletree out, which oddly enough that was the Rams' first signing of the McVay era, and they traded him away like he was nothing. So what are your thoughts on this guy?
Corey Littleton I like the move to linebacker. I think he's excelling there. It's tough for him to move sideline to sideline, though, and they need a true linebacker that can get sideline to sideline and defend the edge. He's more of a pass rusher type of I'm going to get to the quarterback on stunts and delayed blitzes while stuffing the middle of the field. It's tough for him to contain the edge.
Yeah, and I just want to shift for a second. I kind of want to. This is an interesting question that I'm curious to hear your answer to. So here, we're talking about free agency a bit, but I kind of want to shift gears now to the draft, because the Rams are in a bit of an interesting situation. They have that 31st overall pick. Who do you think is the best fit for them to take there? Because that's something that a lot of people like to debate.
There's a lot of players that are a fit at 31. A couple probably won't fall to 31, such as Dalton Risner or Devin Bush. Those are two players that would be the ideal picks for the Rams. Dalton Risner, of course, for left guard to replace Saffold, and Devin Bush would be possibly the best pick if he falls, just because of his athleticism and his ability to get sideline to sideline, as well as rush the passer and drop into coverage. However, the likely scenarios are Mac Wilson, Chris Lindstrom, or Juan Thornhill. And I say Mac Wilson because he's a true run stuffer. He can get sideline to sideline. He can move, and he's not afraid to put his head down and get after that run while opening up his hips and dropping into coverage. He does lack a little hip movement, but with some right coaching, he can really develop into that number one linebacker. Chris Lindstrom's just a bully off the line. If you put him on the left side, you're set for the next 10 years. And then Juan Thornhill. At safety, you have Eric Weddle, who's going to be another Pro Bowler for maybe the next year, maybe two. But at 34 years old, you have no clue when he's going to call it quits. Juan Thornhill can learn from one of the best and then take his spot in Wade Phillips' system.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you brought up Reisner. He's a friend of the podcast, and Alexis is like obsessed with him. So, there's that. Unfortunately, like you saying, him being there is a question. Devin Bush could have been there if the combine didn't exist, but right. He did himself a lot of favors at the combine. Obviously, the pro day.
Both should be top 25 picks.
Yeah. So.
Devin Bush top 20 possibly.
Yeah, so I think when you mentioned Juan Thornhill, that's an interesting one, because I honestly haven't watched a ton of him. And I know it sounds crazy because, they're safeties, and I've watched a lot of players, but for whatever reason, the only time I've seen him is in person at the Senior Bowl. And I wasn't like a huge fan of his. I like guys like, right now, since the Rams have Weddle, it kind of let me, off the path of, do I want a Nasir Adderley? Not saying he'd fall. Or do I want a, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? I'm kind of looking at guys like Evan Worthington, Umada from, Oregon, those type of guys, Will Harris from Boston College. I don't know, even like the smaller school guys like the Alabama State, Karan Ramsey, Monty Fenner from Towson. Like, that's what I've been looking at.
Absolutely.
But, like, where do you see like those guys fitting in? Do you think those guys make sense, or should the Rams really go with the best available safety?
They do, but then you're talking about trading out of the 31st pick. You need picks to make those picks. You don't have a second or third, and you have late fourth, fifth, and sixth.
Well, see that. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was actually what I was gonna, kind of bring up next. Is, in your opinion, do you think that the Rams should keep or trade the 31st overall pick?
It depends on who falls in this draft class. I think it's highly likely that they get out of it just because they don't have a second and third round pick. And the Rams are built for now. I said this last year. They really built a strong starting class in a very weak second level. When you have a very weak second level, you need draft picks to get your age back. You need draft picks to get your contracts back under success. You have Jared Goff coming up, who's going to demand a pretty hefty contract in about a year or two. I'm not quite sure when his contract's up. 2016, so 2 years he'll need a new contract. And when you need that, you're going to look for any way to get more draft picks in the mid rounds, day 2, day 3, early day 3. And with that, trading 31 would probably be your best option. And that's why I bring up Juan Thornhill. He's not my number one safety. He's right there on the cups of 4, 5, and 6. Those three guys are pretty close together. But the reason why I'm thinking Juan Thornhill, he is a do-it-all safety. He's the guy that I think can really develop under Wade Phillips' guidance. He can be that Swiss Army knife, and he's not afraid to tackle. He's not afraid to be the high safety and use his instincts to defend high-flying balls, use his speed and athleticism to attack 50-50 balls. If you can get him in that second round after trading out of the 31st pick, you get a good young player as well as multiple picks throughout the draft.
Yeah, I definitely see, the value there. I want to get your take on a player that just came on our podcast. I fell in love with his tape, and then he comes on here and he sounds like he's got a great mindset, and I think he's going to be really good in this league. And that guy is Blake Cashman, somebody that's name is really starting to grow since really the combine, because I think people are going back and watching his film, or people are watching his film that haven't watched his film. I want to know where you are with that. Do you think, Blake Cashman's the guy that, say they miss on Devin Bush like it looks? Do you think Blake Cashman makes a lot of sense? Because he's my number one linebacker, believe it or not. I think he'd make a lot of sense next to Littleton. But I think you also kind of run the risk, is that kind of a reach at 31? Would you rather just trade back a little bit and get him in the second? Like, what are your thoughts?
I definitely don't see him as a first-round pick. Definitely not. If you want him, you're going to trade back. Possibly get him in the late second, early third. He may even fall further than that just because it's a little of an unknown name, smaller school. And when you look at him, he's a tough guy. He had good production, not great. He's fast. He'll get to the sideline, exactly what you're looking for. But he's not very instinctive. And when you're looking at a first-round pick, you need to see instincts built in, because if you don't have instincts, you're going to struggle in the league. And with Blake Cashman, I haven't watched a ton of tape on him, but it's very, very rare where you see him instinctually react right when that ball snapped, attacking the ball. And he has the athleticism to recover from that. But it's going to be difficult if he can't do that right now. He's not going to learn it in the league. And with that, he's going to fall into the second, third round.
Are there any sleepers that you think that we should all keep an eye on in this draft?
Definitely for the Rams, Ben Burr-Kirven from Washington.
Love Ben.
If you want a fast, uber athletic linebacker who's not afraid to hit 4th round pick, 5th round pick, Ben Burr-Kirven could fall into that range. And if he's on that board, you better hope LA pulls the trigger on him.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of his game. You turn on the tape and say you're trying to watch, Byron Murphy. I mean, Byron Murphy's my number one corner, but, on the other side, Ben Burr-Kirven is making play after play after play. When they say the guy acts like he plays like his hair is on fire, they're talking about somebody like Ben Burr-Kirven. So I definitely like that. I think he'd make a lot of sense. We'll talk a little bit about this, and then I do actually want to get your take on last year's draft class for the Rams, because, we always talk about, draft classes, we grade them and whatnot. The Rams kind of had a different approach last year. It seemed as though they were setting up for the inevitable the next year. They go out and they get Joe Noteboom, they grab Brian Allen, they grab Jamil Demby, so they grab 3 offensive linemen, they get Micah Kaiser and Okoronkwo. I guess we'll just go into it now. What were your thoughts on that class, and how do you feel about them providing, if anything, this year for this team coming off a Super Bowl appearance?
I didn't like their draft class last year. I think I graded them a C-, maybe worse. I'm not sure exactly what I graded them, but they had a lacking linebacker core. They did not address it. They had a very lacking pass rush. They addressed it with Dante Fowler Jr. At the trade deadline. But yeah, that draft class was not good in my eyes. They needed to address the offensive line earlier. They did not have the picks to do so, so they adapted, used their third, fourth round picks on offensive linemen. I don't see either of them contributing heavily. It didn't look good in my eyes to not address the areas of need that you're going to be needing this year, over drafting potential replacements on the offensive line where you're still going to have guys in place that probably won't contribute ever.
So what do you think are the biggest needs this year for the Rams during this draft?
So it's always going to be, as of right now, it's going to be your linebacker group. Clay Matthews helps your outside, but you're going to need another outside linebacker across from him, as well as somebody next to Littleton. Littleton is going to be a long-term answer, but he's also expendable. And if you can find players to replace him, he's not going to be a starter for very long. The next would be your guard. You need somebody to replace Saffold. And like I said, Chris Lindstrom would be an ideal replacement at 31, or even a trade back scenario, and get him in the second.
Yeah, and really, I think one of the, I guess I would say, one of the needs anyway, and it's maybe not a need, but I kind of look at it as one, tight end. And I feel like there are some tight ends in this class that, the Rams could take a look at somebody like a Trayvon Wesco, or, maybe a Dax Raymond. They don't have to go and get like the big name. Although I think if TJ Hawkinson is there at 31, I'm pull the trigger. He's the best player available on my board. I would pull the trigger.
I promise you, if he's there at 30, the Patriots are jumping the Rams.
I could definitely see that, obviously, with the Gronk news and everything. Could you see them, drafting a tight end, and who do you think that would be?
They could. I'm looking at a Josh Oliver type guy who can go out and catch the ball. They're going to be looking at a receiver if they go for a tight end. Make sure that if a Cooper Kupp situation happens again, they have the replacement. They're not going to use an early round draft pick on a tight end, however.
Yeah. And then I'll just say this because, obviously the Rams signed Bortles. I know people kind of look at that as a joke, but do you think they could go quarterback in this? Because I know they were, talking to a few Rams scouts at, the Senior Bowl. It sure seemed like they were interested in the quarterbacks. But now I kind of feel like, because of the Bortles pickup, they go from looking at maybe, a Will Greer and, Tyree Jackson to, more so like the later round guys. What are your thoughts?
I don't think they're going to pull a trigger on a quarterback this year. I still have complete 100% faith in Jared Goff to guide that team. I think he fell off a little later in the year. He has never been in that situation. He won his second playoff game this year, and I just don't see them looking at a quarterback when they have so many other needs across their roster.
Yeah, I can agree with that and see that. And something that I just kind of want to ask you is, what are your thoughts on this draft in general? I mean, do you think that this is probably, one of the things going around is that this is one of the best defensively rich drafts in a while? Do you kind of agree with that, or is there anything that stands out to you most about the draft this year?
This is definitely one of the deepest defensive draft classes I've seen in a long time, especially coming off the defensive line and edge groupings. Even the safeties, you could see 5 safeties go in the top 60 picks.
Wow.
With the quarterback hypings getting going over the last couple weeks, if you see the Kyler Murray go in the first round at 1, the Drew Lock, Daniel Jones, and those guys go in round 1, round 2 is going to be the deepest draft in possibly the last 10 years.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I keep telling people, if you're a Rams fan or you're a fan of a team that already has, a starting quarterback, you want to see guys like Daniel Jones go in the first round. I mean, that's how it goes. Whether you see it or not,
there is
that's to be seen.
Yeah, there are moments on social media where I see somebody go, "This guy's a first round talent," or "This guy's a top 45 talent." My only response is there are 45 other guys that are top 45 talents.
Yeah,
like outside the top 45.
Right. I mean, I certainly think that, this draft is going to be interesting because, you do have, all these talented guys. And I think it is kind of an interesting year as far as team needs goes. There's a lot of teams who I thought would maybe be looking at one position who now I think are looking at another position because of free agency moves. And it certainly has been interesting to keep up with. And, we're not going to know what's going to happen until it happens.
Yeah. On that, I wouldn't look too far into that. NFL teams are very on their books. They stick to their draft board. And when that's set, it's set. I wouldn't look into a free agency move eliminating a position of need from a team. So if a team were to pick up an Eric Weddle, I wouldn't throw out safety in a early round. If a team were to pick up a Michael Bennett, I wouldn't throw out an edge rusher in the first round. There's going to be a lot of teams that try to claim younger, talented guys for a position, but every team is looking for talent, and if that talent drops to you in the draft, you're going to take a swing, no matter if it's a position that you just picked up in free agency.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I always bring up on the show, look, these teams make these moves, the smart ones anyway. They're trying to build up their roster so they don't have to feel the need to reach on somebody that may not be on their board, on top of their board when they're picking. And I think that's why teams do that. It's almost like a safety valve.
Right.
With that being said, we talked, you were kind of giving me some guys that you were higher on than the consensus, back, at the Senior Bowl. I want to, have you share those guys because, I spoke with you and I remember you're the one talking about, Josh Jacobs. And then I swear, 2 weeks later, everyone was talking about him. So, I want to get your take on who you would say you're higher than the consensus of, NFL, whether it's media, whether it's Twitter. I don't really care, but like the consensus in general.
My number one, my favorite prospect, he's not my number one because I don't think he's the most NFL ready, but Josh Allen from Kentucky. It's an easy one. A lot of people are high on him. But I think if he is able to develop in his early first year, second year, I think he has all pro potential. I think he could develop into the best player of this draft class, and he could do it early on in his career. Josh Jacobs, like you mentioned, I love his running ability. I would not look too far into that 4.6 40 he ran at the Alabama Pro Day. He's been struggling with a groin injury, and I would assume that had a lot to do with that time. I am not sure how much of an issue it is still. However, on tape, he is able to get into the second level. He's able to get the edge. He's able to race defensive backs to the boundary and to the end zone and get free. And that power and his aggressiveness and his leadership is traits that you do not look away from.
Are there any guys who you aren't as high on that, a lot of people really like and you just are kind of like, I don't get it, or, you're skeptical about?
Get Rashawn Gary out of the first round. Please.
A direct attack on Alexis.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Rashawn Gary is one of my least favorite prospects in this draft. I think he's all hype. There are guys that are drafted solely on athleticism and upside. And, of course, you're going to draft those guys because that upside is absolutely enormous. He could explode in year one with 8 to 12 sacks from the interior. However, he's not going to be used solely on the interior. He's going to be used as an edge rusher. He's going to be used as a drop-back linebacker. He's going to be used as a 3-tech. He's not strong enough to play 3-tech. He doesn't have the flexibility to play edge. But he's athletic, so teams are going to bite. When you do that, you get the guys like Hassan Reddick. You get the guys like Vic Beasley, who's had one productive year. Rashawn Gary has no motor. It's like he does not want to be on the field.
Sure.
When he plays, when he lines up, there is not one play from 2018 that says, wow, that guy's athletic. We all just knew going into the combine that he was going to blow it up.
I think that's a good explanation. One thing I want to, because we'll wrap this thing up. I want to get your thoughts on this. I know I tweeted about it, and I know like Rams Twitter is going nuts about the idea of getting Dexter Lawrence, and I want to get your thoughts on who would you rather have. 31st overall, would you rather have Dexter Lawrence or have your your 31st overall pick and grab either one of these four guys with your third round pick? Daniel Wise from Kansas, Rennell Wren from Arizona State, Colin Saunders from Western Illinois, or Tristan Hill from UCF? Who would you rather have?
Dexter Lawrence or one of those four guys? For the Rams, I would look at either Rennell Wren or stay with Dexter Lawrence, and that's not a shot to any of the other guys. My favorite out of those five is Colin Saunders.
Oh, yeah, he's probably ours, but...
I don't think he is the need that the Rams want, though. You already have Aaron Donald, and you already have that productive, I'm going to get the quarterback from the interior. That's what Colin Saunders is going to do. He's a big, get the quarterback type of guy. He's going to clog the interior, but that's not going to be his main mission in the NFL. Rennell Wren is a big body that can get off, but he's going to clog the interior and get that interior pressure from the interior. He's going to push bodies around. Dexter Lawrence, he's an anchor that nobody will want to run against. And the Rams, their run game was abysmal in 2018. If you can get Dexter Lawrence possibly in the first round, if not trade back, get him in the second, I think he does fall to the second round. That's going to be a guy that's going to help clog that interior, and nobody's going to want to run against you.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, all of those guys are really talented, and it's been interesting to kind of get everyone's take on those guys and, on the draft in general. And then it was really cool, Jason, to have you on. Thank you so much for talking to us and letting us pick your brain. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Jason. You take care. We'll be in touch as always. And, good luck with everything.
Thank you. Make sure to give a follow to @Blitzalytics, @Feiner Scores. That's my handle. Shoot me with any draft questions, and we'll have some more scouting reports live for you in the coming weeks.
All right, guys. You heard him. It's a good thing you did, because, I sure am not good at this plug thing. but hey, no, it's been a lot of fun. Really wish you guys the best of luck. And, obviously you guys are, great. It was great getting to know you, great getting to meet you, and, of course, great having you on my show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Take care.
You too.